Hey everyone, how y'all doing today? Welcome to another episode of Hockey on the Spot with Brandon Barenfeld. I'm Brandon Barenfeld. Thank you for joining me today. This is episode 114 of Hockey on the Spot, and as I said, I would be doing videos for the next 3 days, including yesterday and today. Yesterday, just talked about the big playoff surprises and honoring some of the players that are retiring. For today's episode, we're going to take a look at the Eastern Conference playoffs. That's right, only the Eastern Conference today. Tomorrow will be the Western Conference. And we have a lot to talk about, so let's get right to it. But first, just a little quick update. Kind of a big surprise in the NHL happened last night. The Nashville Predators have fired their longtime head coach and only head coach in their franchise history, Barry Trotz. Barry Trotz has been with the franchise since day one, and they failed to reach the playoffs for the second straight year. The Nashville Predators looking to find a new system, maybe a more offensive type system, and Barry Trotz, much more of a defensive style coach. So a change is coming in Nashville as they will look to get back in the playoffs next year. And again, the only reason they even missed the playoffs this year was because of the injury to Pekka Rinne. That was a huge loss for them. Otherwise, we might have seen them in the playoffs this year. However, again, Barry Trotz fired as head coach of the Nashville Predators for the first time ever. And for the first time ever, the Nashville Predators are now in the position to look for a new head coach. So, again, Barry Trotz will go down in Nashville history for sure as one of the great coaches, and he's going to be missed by many fans and players, as he was a great coach to get along with as well. So good luck to Barry Trotz in wherever life takes him. Also, the other news of today, earlier this morning, the Philadelphia Flyers have signed defenseman Andrew MacDonald to a multi-year contract extension. MacDonald was acquired by the Flyers at the trade deadline from the New York Islanders. So they like the way MacDonald has played for them this year, despite being a -3. He led the NHL in block shots this year, and it's a good signing by the Flyers as they now have an upgrade as far as shutdown defensemen are concerned, an upgrade over Andre Meszaros, who of course they traded at the deadline to the Boston Bruins. So MacDonald excited for the playoffs and can now enjoy his multi-year contract extension. Unconfirmed how many years. I'll get back to you guys on that later on. So congratulations to Andrew MacDonald on his mainstay in Philadelphia. So anyway, with all that being said, now let's get down to the Eastern Conference playoff preview. And the order I'm going to go in as far as talking about the different series is going to be the order of which series begins. And the first series that begins is the series between the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Montreal Canadiens. So that will be the first series that I will be talking about today. For the Tampa Bay Lightning and Montreal Canadiens, it really all came down to the last day of who was going to get home ice advantage. The Lightning would win their final regular season game 1-0 in a shootout over the Washington Capitals, thus allowing them to get the home ice advantage. And when it seemed like the Montreal Canadiens had all the breaks, they would have won any tie breaks. And that was the last thing to be confirmed for either conference as far as the playoffs went. Congratulations to the Tampa Bay Lightning on winning home ice advantage on the final day. And that's actually not good for the Montreal Canadiens because in the regular season series this year, each game was pretty close. However, it would be the Tampa Bay Lightning coming out on top, winning the season series 3-1, winning 3 out of 4 meetings, and the only game they lost was in a shootout. So the Lightning getting at least 1 point in every single game of the regular season series. The Montreal Canadiens, they would actually get a good amount of points in that series too. The game, obviously, they won in a shootout. And then 2 of the games they lost were either in overtime or a shootout. They lost 1 in a shootout, and they lost 1 in overtime. And, of course, the final meeting of the year was a 3-1 victory, but the third goal came via an empty net goal. So It was a tight season series, and even though the Lightning got at least a point in every game, it was a close. The score of the season series was closer than it looked. So we could be in for a very interesting series, and I think we actually could be in for possibly a 7-game series. And the fate of the Lightning in the series, to me, is really all going to depend on if Ben Bishop can get back in the lineup, get healthy, and get back in the lineup. He was their star this season without question. And obviously for the Lightning, they'll obviously be in the playoffs without Marty St. Louis, as he is now a New York Ranger. But instead they will have Ryan Callahan, and Callahan, of course, has been very good for them since coming over. Much better than they would have anticipated, for sure. As far as the Montreal Canadiens go, obviously they have their trade deadline acquisition, Thomas Vanek, and Vanek has been despite getting off to a rough start, Vanek has ended up coming on strong in a Montreal uniform, and Vanek's been very good for them this year. Obviously, Vanek toggled between 3 different teams in the Buffalo Sabres, New York Islanders, and Montreal Canadiens. So, as far as who I think is going to win this series, I think it all depends on the health of Ben Bishop, because obviously it is possible that Bishop may miss the rest of the season. And, but at the same time, Anders Lindback has been very good since he's been hurt. And they also have that youngster, Christos Gudlevskis, who in this one NHL start was very good. So you got to figure, whichever one of those guys gets the start, which you got to think it will be Lindback, at least in the beginning, whoever gets the start is going to have to play better, play beyond his limits. Otherwise, the Lightning are going to have a real tough time winning this series. It's going to be all about the goaltending for them. It really is. Obviously, Steven Stamkos will have to be as good as he normally is when healthy. And the youngsters are going to have to come up big. Andre Palat has proven that he could be a force out there. And then you also have Tyler Johnson, 2 of the best rookies in the NHL this year. Palat, obviously, the second best rookie in the league this season, and a really fast skater, really aggressive on the puck, and that's going to be a factor as well. And for the Montreal Canadiens, obviously they are stable with Carey Price in goal. He's had a very good season, and obviously Montreal, the only Canadian team in the playoffs this year, they'll look to, and that will probably be used as motivation for them to go on a deep playoff run, knowing that they are the only thing representing Canada in the playoffs this year. They are the only team representing Canada in the playoffs this year. But in addition to that, obviously they got players like Max Pacioretty, Thomas Plekanec, Brian Gionta, Thomas Vanek. They're all going to have to be good. PK Subban's going to have to be good. Andrei Markov's going to have to be good. And they also have the youngster Brendan Gallagher there, and they're going to need Alex Galchenyuk back. Obviously, I mean he's hurt. They're going to want him back hopefully soon, because he's a key part of their roster. Overall, who do I think is going to win the series? At the end of the day, I think the series will go to 7 games, and even though the Lightning are the team with the home ice advantage, I honestly have to say I think Montreal, being the more experienced franchise and having the more experienced players, I think it will be Montreal winning this series in 7 games. Again, I think the Lightning could obviously steal the series. If Ben Bishop can come back, then I think we're talking a little bit of a different series. But if he can't come back, and honestly, regardless, in my opinion, I just think Montreal is much better suited to go to the second round. They're going to be motivated. They want to play the Boston Bruins in the second round. They may even want to play the Detroit Red Wings in the second round. They want to play an Original Six team in the second round. So we'll see what happens. Again, I think Montreal is going to win that series. Okay, now we move on to our second series, the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Columbus Blue Jackets. For the Columbus Blue Jackets, this is their first playoff appearance since 2009 and their second playoff appearance overall in their franchise history. Last time they were in the playoffs, they had Rick Nash on their roster, and they got swept in the first round by the Detroit Red Wings. This year, I'm kind of expecting yet another sweep, maybe 5 games, by the hands of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Let's face it, the Pittsburgh Penguins, a much more experienced team and franchise, and not to mention they played each other 5 times this year, the most of any first-round playoff matchup in the Eastern Conference, and the Penguins won all 5 meetings, a season series sweep. And really, a lot of those games weren't even close. And as far as the games themselves went, the Blue Jackets only led once in that whole season series, and that only lasted for about 1:05 before the Penguins tied the game. So, really, the series wasn't even close. The Penguins dominated that season series, and that makes you believe that they're going to dominate again in the playoffs. I see a sweep, although at the same time, the Blue Jackets could steal a game. Bobrovsky could steal a game. But if the Blue Jackets are going to have any hope of winning this series, which obviously the odds, considering the regular season series, are slim to none, Sergei Bobrovsky is going to have to prove why he won the Vezina Trophy last season despite missing the playoffs. And he's going to have to go beyond his limits and completely stand on his head. He's going to have to steal games because that Pittsburgh offense, when you think of Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin and Chris Kunitz and James Neal, you can throw Brandon Sutter in there. He can provide offense when need be. Also, they got Lee Stempniak, their trade deadline acquisition. He's been good since coming over, taking over Pascal Dupuis' role. And then UC Jokinen as well. He's had a fine year for the Penguins. When you think of that offense, and then you think of guys like, think of a healthy Chris Letang on the back end, as well as Paul Martin and Brooks Orpik, and do you think of that roster? They're loaded. They're absolutely loaded up front and on the back end. The big concern for the Pittsburgh Penguins in this playoffs is obviously, once again, going to be their goaltender, Marc-Andre Fleury. The last few playoffs, he has not been good. Just plain and simple, he has not been good. And last year in particular, when he started in the first 4 games against the New York Islanders, he won 2 and lost 2, but in all those games he gave up bad goals. Tomas Vokoun stepped in, and he basically led the charge for the rest of the playoffs. Fleury did get in another game. Vokoun, I believe, got pulled in one of the games, but Fleury just did not play good even when he came in. So if the Penguins, for me, if the Penguins are going to win this series at the same time, even though I still think they will dominate the series, in order for that to be official, Marc-Andre Fleury is going to have to get himself back into form and get his playoff game back to the same as it was in the regular season. He's always one of the best goaltenders in the regular season. In the playoffs, completely different story. You never know what you're going to get out of him. So I think for the Penguins to seal the deal, Fleury's going to have to stand on his head. The good news, obviously, for the Pittsburgh Penguins is that they will have Tomas Vokoun back for the playoffs. He missed the entire regular season with blood clots. For the end of the season, he was sent down to the American Hockey League's Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, where he played on a conditioning stint. He was recalled now, and he will more likely than not be the backup goaltender for the playoffs, and maybe even start in a game. I can see him getting a game in, especially if Fleury doesn't play well. What does that mean for Jeff Zatkoff? He's been one of the surprising better backup goaltenders in the league this year. He's played very well when he's gotten the chance to play. What does that mean for him? They could reassign him to Wilkes-Barre, or they could keep him up as a tertiary goaltender in case one gets hurt. You got to figure that, you got to be concerned about Vokoun and, can he really go? Can he really perform, coming back from an injury? Again, for the Blue, but that's really going to be the key for the Pittsburgh Penguins, Marc-Andre Fleury, and how well he plays. But if you're the Columbus Blue Jackets, you're definitely going to be hoping that Fleury is going to be off his game And if he is, if you can crash the net, if Fleury's off his game and you can crash the net and do those little things that they've done all year, they're going to be just fine. The Blue Jackets obviously did have the highlight goal of the season series with Corey Tropp's goal, but that doesn't mean anything. They're obviously going to look for more highlight goals. They're going to have a lot of lucky breaks in order to win that series. And Ryan Johansson obviously had a career year this year. He was the top player on the team without question. He's going to be a star in the NHL. We know that. He's going to have to prove himself in the playoffs now. They have a whole roster that's going to have to prove themselves. And they have experience now with players that have gone to the Eastern Conference Finals with Brandon Dubinsky and Artem Anisimov down the middle. They got R.J. Umberger on their roster. He went to the conference finals back in 2008 with the Philadelphia Flyers. They got a lot of, they got talent, the Blue Jackets, plus a young defense. But again, overall, I just don't see it for the Blue Jackets. I see a sweep, possibly a 5-game series for the Pittsburgh Penguins. I think the Blue Jackets can steal a game and win their first franchise playoff game. But, you got to take things in small steps. But overall, I think the Penguins will win the series in 4 or 5 games. I'm predicting 4 or 5 games. I might be leaning a little bit more toward 5 games just to be a little lenient. I am confident that the Blue Jackets can steal a game on home ice. But that's really about it. Again, Pittsburgh's going to win that series. Next series to talk about, the New York Rangers and the Philadelphia Flyers. This is probably the most interesting series of this first round and the trickiest to talk about as well. This is going to be one of the most viewed series in the playoffs for sure. One reason, it's a rivalry matchup. It is a rivalry matchup, 2 arch rivals. Their first time playing each other in the playoffs since the 1997 playoffs in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Flyers won that series in 5 games, and prior to that, they played each other in the second round of 1995. The Flyers swept that series. So the Flyers have had the most of the success in playoff matchups between those two in the last couple times they played each other, which hasn't been for a long time. But now you kind of look into it. The season series was a tie this year. They played each other 4 games. The Rangers won 2 games, and the Flyers won 2 games. Every game ended in regulation. But the difference is home ice has been the key. Both teams won both of their 2 wins against each other on home ice. And it is the Rangers with the home ice advantage this year. I do see here another close series. I think it is going to be a very close series. And in the end, to me, it is going to come down to home ice. And if all goes according to plan, if teams are going to win every home game, then it will be a 7-game series. I'm confident that we are going to have a 7-game series here, but I think Henrik Lundqvist and the Rangers are going to come out on top. That's going to be really key for the Rangers, too. Henrik Lundqvist being as good as ever in the playoffs. He's going to have to be tremendous. But I also think Marty St. Louis is going to have to be tremendous. He's going to have to be 10 times better than he was when he came over at the trade deadline from the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I think he can be. This is a guy who knows how to play in the playoffs. He knows how to thrive under pressure. And he's played a lot better as of late. His playmaking has picked up. And he's developed chemistry playing alongside Rick Nash. The Rangers are going to have Ryan McDonagh back for the playoffs. The question is now for the Rangers, will they have Chris Kreider back at any time soon? There have been no updates on the status of Chris Kreider, so none of us really know exactly what's going on with him. The Rangers, they're obviously going to hope to have him back, and when he does come back, where does he fit in? Do they put him back on the line with Stepan and Nash? Or do they test him out on a different line and let St. Louis continue to play with Nash because of the chemistry they've been able to develop together? And what about the 4th line for the Rangers? Whoever's played on that 4th line, that's going to be also key for the Rangers, has been tremendous. You have Dominic Moore, you have Brian Boyle, you have Derek Dorsett, and you have Dan Carcillo, 4 4th-line players. One guy is always playing on another line, and then the other guy is always and then the other guy, and then the rest of the three are on the fourth line. Or on a lot of situations, you'll see one guy scratched, and most of the time it's Dan Carcillo, despite how well the Rangers have played since acquiring him. Because for the Rangers, as we all know, they got off to a really rough start this season. But to me, ever since they acquired Dan Carcillo from the Los Angeles Kings, that really turned their season around. They won a road game against the Chicago Blackhawks 3-2 at the United Center, and that game really started the turnaround of the Rangers. You thought, you had to think finishing with a losing record on their 9-game road trip, as well as a losing record on their 9-game homestand, more importantly, that kind of got many people thinking that their season was probably over. But they then had stopped scratching Benoit Pouliot, and once he ended his scoring slump, he became a fantastic player for them. That's another line that's been big for the Rangers all year long. Derek Brassard, Matt Zuccarello, and Benoit Pouliot, they're going to have to be equally as good in the playoffs. Brad Richards is going to have to be good. Really, for the New York Rangers, you're really going to be counting on everybody to be good and play at a top level. And really, the other big question now for the Rangers is on defense. With Ryan McDonagh coming back, who gets scratched? It's definitely not going to be Rafael. I really don't think it'll be Rafael Diaz. At least I don't think it should be Rafael Diaz. He's been tremendous since coming in. But you got to think about either John Moore or Anton Strawman. Really, as far as evening out lefties and righties, I have to say it'll probably be John Moore being the healthy scratch. Or possibly Anton Strawman, actually. I think it'll be Anton Strawman being the healthy scratch just to even out the lefties and righties on defense. Because I think Rafael Diaz has played way too well to be scratched at this point. That's my opinion. But these little acquisitions that the Rangers have made have really been what turned their season around. As far as the Philadelphia Flyers are concerned, they got off to an even worse start when the season began. Peter Laviolette was their head coach at the beginning of the year, and they went 1-7 in their first 8 games. Peter Laviolette gets fired. The assistant coach, Craig Berube, takes over as the head coach, and once he takes over, the team starts to play brilliant. And it's Claude Giroux, who had a hard time scoring in the first month of the season. He didn't get his first goal until November, and he ended the season as the 3rd leading scorer in the National Hockey League. For the Flyers to come out on top in this series, Giroux's going to obviously have to play like Claude Giroux. He's going to have to do a lot of scoring. He's going to have to be their most dominant performer. The good news for the Flyers is that it looks like they will have Steve Mason back for the first game of the playoffs. Steve Mason got hurt in the game against the Pittsburgh Penguins, and he is definitely their starter. So you got to figure that Mason's going to come back and be the starter over Ray Emery. And Mason's going to have to be good. Throughout his career, he's actually been really good against the New York Rangers, and that's going to have to really be the factor for the Flyers. They're going to have to continue to be a good team overall. Their overall game is going to have to be good. In addition to Claude Giroux, Jake Voracek is going to have to continue to play tremendous. He had a career year this year. Wayne Simmons is going to have to be good. Scott Hartnell is going to have to be good. And Vinny LeCavalier, the guy on that team with the Stanley Cup experience, he's going to have to be really, really good. He's going to be relied on to help lead the charge out there in the playoffs. So, but overall, again, I think at the end of the day, I think a guy like Henrik Lundqvist is going to be too good of a goalie to let the Flyers get to his head. I think Lundqvist and the Rangers come out on top, but I do think the Flyers will battle, and I do think it will be a 7-game series. That's just my opinion. I think if the Flyers hope to win the series, they got to win a game at Madison Square Garden. That's got to be key. They're on an 8-game losing streak at the Garden. They have not won there in a very long time, and in order for them to have any hope of winning the series, they're going to have to steal a game on Garden ice. That's going to be the key. And the Rangers, although they're a much better road team, they've been much better at home as of late. toward the end of the season, their home record finally got better, and they finally got more consistent at home. So they'll hope to carry that into the playoffs. So again, I think we're talking New York Rangers in 7 games. That's my prediction for that series. And then last but not least, we got the final playoff matchup that's going to start not just in the Eastern Conference but overall in the playoffs. This matchup doesn't start until Friday. The Boston Bruins and the Detroit Red Wings. This is a very interesting series, and this will be a popular series for the sense that it's an original 6 matchup. And most of the matchups between these two in the regular season came early on in the year. They had one toward the end of the season in April. And for the Boston Bruins, they've been a consistent team all year long. They're well deserving of the President's Trophy. They went on that 12-game win streak at one point in the year. And that's really what propelled them to win the President's Trophy this year. They've been one of the most consistent teams in the NHL this year. And it's just up and down their lineup. They have a different player providing the scoring. Jarome Iginla has had an absolutely tremendous year, a comeback year for him in a sense. He really did not have a great year in last year's lockout-shortened year. It's been a tremendous year for him. He had 30 goals this year. David Krejci, he had a tremendous year. He was their leading point scorer. Torrey Krug, the top rookie defenseman in the NHL by far. And Zdeno Chara, obviously, as good as always. Again, obviously, this team has been without Dennis Seidenberg all year long, but they've been able to get someone to fill his place in Andre Meszaros. They actually got him from the Philadelphia Flyers, and Meszaros has been rather solid since coming over. They also have that youngster, Carl Soderberg. He's been very good since coming over. He's been very good. And then how about some of the players they got in the Sagan trade? Riley Smith, the younger brother of Detroit defenseman Brendan Smith. He's had a big year. And Louis Eriksson, overall, it's going to be a kind of a year for him to forget overall. But toward the end, he's had a lot of injuries this year, and when he's been healthy, he just hasn't provided well. However, in the later stages of the season, Louis Eriksson was one of their better players. He really turned it on at the end of the season, and he hopes to carry that momentum in the playoffs. Louis Eriksson's going to be a key player for them in the playoffs, I think. If he can carry his momentum through the playoffs, the Bruins will be in good shape. And, of course, you can't talk about the Boston Bruins without talking about the goaltender, Tuukka Rask. One of the best goaltenders in the NHL this year. You got to figure that he will be a finalist for the Vezina Trophy this year. He's had a Vezina Trophy type season. Rask has just been absolutely tremendous while taking most of the workload. He really hasn't had a true backup this year. Obviously, they've had Chad Johnson for most of the year as the backup, and he's been okay. And then at points, when he wasn't in the lineup, they had Nicholas Svedberg up as well. But, you got to figure that that's one of the things the Bruins may look to in the offseason, a real backup goaltender that can maybe relieve Rask of a couple games. But, that's really going to be the key for the Bruins. Tuukka Rask continuing to perform the way he did in the regular season. And the Bruins being able to score. That's going to be another key here. The Bruins have to be able to score. You need to have as good of an offense, a good offense as well as a good defense in order to play well in the playoffs. And, they'll look to a guy like Milan Lucic to do the dirty work for them, getting in front of the net and, try to agitate the other players and get them on his back a little bit. Lucic, obviously, he's going to be a physical presence. You got to figure that much. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to being able to score. And they're definitely going to be relying now on Jarome Iginla, who scored 30 goals, was one of their goal-scoring leaders this year. They're going to rely on him to continue that in the playoffs for sure. Now, the Detroit Red Wings, with the Detroit Red Wings, they made a lot of key additions during the offseason. They got Daniel Alfredsson from the Ottawa Senators, and they got Stephen Weiss from the Florida Panthers. Weiss has been a huge disappointment this year, and he's been hurt all year. They look to correct his they looked to correct that by adding David Legwand at the trade deadline from the Nashville Predators. Legwand has been good since coming over. But the problem for the Red Wings all year long, and it seems to be the theme for them every single year, has been injuries. Pavel Datsyuk has not been in the lineup much. He's been hurt for most of the year. Henrik Zetterberg got hurt in the first game of the Olympics. He has not played since. However, he could be. The belief is that he'll be ready to go by the playoffs. Obviously, Darren Helm is a player who just can't seem to stay healthy year in and year out. Johan Franzen, he's been hurt. He was hurt for most of the beginning of the year. He was out with concussion problems. They've had a lot of injuries this year, the Red Wings. Jimmy Howard was out at one point. And because of these injuries, the Red Wings had a hard time performing this year. And at one point, they were out of the playoff picture, surprisingly enough, a position that they're not familiar with. And the other big problem for the Red Wings this year, surprisingly enough, has been their record at home. For the longest time, they just couldn't seem to buy a win at the Joe Louis Arena, which is weird because over the years, they've always been one of the best home teams, if not the best home team, in the National Hockey League. That's been a very comfortable place for them up until this year. They've been a much better road team this year, and it really has been their road record that has kept them in it this year. They are the only team, by the way, the Red Wings, they're the only team in the playoffs this year that does not have at least 40 wins on the season. They finished the year with 39 wins. They're the only team in the playoffs this year for either conference that have not finished with a 40-win season. But the Red Wings, they really turned it on at the end of the year, and they were determined to make it back in the playoffs for their 22nd or 23rd straight year. I believe it's their 23rd straight year. And for the Red Wings, believe it or not, they're not just any ordinary 8th place team. And they're actually very comfortable going into this series with the Boston Bruins, and they should be. They won the season series this year, and in decisive fashion, too. The Bruins actually won the first game of the season series in decisive fashion, 4-1. But then it was all Red Wings from there. They had 2 one-goal games, a couple of 3-2 games, or I think a 3-2 game and a 4-3 game. And then that first game in Detroit where the Red Wings just blew them out of the water, a 6-1 final score. That was one of the Bruins' worst games of the year. That was the third meeting of the year. So you could tell the Red Wings very confident going into this series with the Bruins. And with that being said, I can see, at the very least a 6-game series here. I can definitely see a 6-game series. I think the Red Wings are going to give the Bruins a tough time, but at the end of the day, I think Tuukka Rask is going to outmatch Jimmy Howard. And with that being said, I think Tuukka Rask is going to be the series MVP, and I think the Bruins will come out on top in 6 games. So those are my predictions for the Eastern Conference, and that's pretty much going to do it for this video. But just another quick update real quick, and believe it or not, an American Hockey League update. An American Hockey League update about the Calgary Flames affiliate, the Abbotsford Heat. Rumors going around that their contract with Abbotsford is going to be terminated, has been terminated, and that the rumor is that it's very possible that they might be moving to Glen Falls, New York. The city of Abbotsford did terminate the contract with the Abbotsford Heat, but it could be possible that they could get a new contract still, or the team may move. The rumor is that there is the New York Civic Center in Glen Falls, New York, is opening up to the Abbotsford Heat, and if that's the case, now we're talking farther distance between players coming from the American Hockey League to the National Hockey League. So that's pretty much the case with that. And congratulations to Texas Stars forward Curtis McKenzie for winning Rookie of the Year. He stormed the league with 26 goals and 38 assists. And last but not least, the financial terms for Andrew McDonald's contract extension have been confirmed. It's a 6-year extension worth $30 million, about $5 million average a year. And also the New York Rangers signing a college free agent defenseman, Matt Bodie, to an entry-level deal. He's coming off a national title, serving as the captain for Union College. He had a goal and an assist in Union's 7-4 victory over Minnesota in the championship game. He also led all NCAA defensemen with 39 points and recorded 57 penalty minutes in 40 games this season. So the Rangers, they think they have a winner on defense here coming out of college. Congratulations to them. Now, and that will pretty much do it for this video. Also, guys, be sure to check it out tonight at 8 o'clock p.m. on NBC Sports Network, and then rerunning at 8:30 p.m. on the NHL Network. The NHL Draft Lottery is tonight, so be sure to check that out. It's a half-hour program, again, on NBC Sports Network at 8 o'clock, and then re-airing at 8:30 on the NHL Network. That's in the U.S., so for all you hockey fans out there, be sure to check that out. It should prove to be a very interesting draft lottery this year. So we'll have an update on what happens in the draft lottery tomorrow, as well as our discussion on the Western Conference playoff. The Western Conference playoffs. We'll have our Western Conference playoff preview tomorrow, as well as what happened in the draft lottery. So until then, thank you for watching episode 114 of Hockey on the Spot. This has been Hockey on the Spot with Brandon Barenfeld. I'm Brandon Barenfeld. Thank you guys for joining me today. I will see you all again tomorrow. Thank you and have a great day.